What does it mean when a machine goes silent on a distant world? On Mars, a lonely rover once whispered across the void. Spirit. A traveler built by human hands, sent to wander a planet that has haunted imagination for centuries. It roamed across the rusted plains, its wheels cutting fragile tracks into dust that had lain untouched for billions of years. Then came the silence. Spirit's final transmission was not a word, but an image. A frozen frame carried 225 million kilometers through the dark. It was as if the machine had looked back one last time and left behind a photograph of its own mortality, a farewell carved in pixels and static. Mars became a stage and a graveyard in that moment. The stage for human ambition, daring to cross the gulf of space. The graveyard for fragile dreams that cannot endure the storms of an alien world. A rover is only metal and code, yet in its last gaze it felt human. A mortal thing meeting its end beneath the endless sky of another world. That final image is more than data. It is a mirror. A reminder that every mission, every hope cast into the cosmos, carries the weight of our longing to belong somewhere beyond Earth. But what did Spirit's last vision truly mean? Why does a single image born from silence matter so deeply to the search for life and a future among the stars? Every great story begins with a question. At the dawn of the new millennium, humanity asked, could Mars have ever been a world for life? And if so, could its secrets still linger in stone, in dust, in the hidden veins of its soil? To answer, two machines were born. They were not just machines, but symbols, spirit and opportunity. Twin rovers conceived in the halls of NASA at a time when hope for discovery was swelling, when technology was racing forward, and when humanity was ready to stretch its hand across the gulf once more. Mars had always been a frontier of myth and imagination, but in the early 2000s it became a frontier of engineering. Spirit was designed with a body no larger than a golf cart, yet packed with instruments that echoed the ambition of centuries. Solar panels unfolded like fragile wings to catch the distant light of the sun. A mast rose from its frame, crowned with cameras known as pan-cam, giving the rover eyes to see in color and in stereo, to sweep the Martian horizon with the vision of a human explorer. Its hands were tools of precision. A robotic arm capable of grinding into stone, touching, measuring. At its core, the Mini-TES, the Miniature Thermal Emission Spectrometer, could read the hidden fingerprints of minerals, revealing whether rock had formed in fire or in water. Every bolt, every circuit, every line of code was crafted with one purpose: to answer the ancient question of habitability. Spirit was not alone. Its twin, Opportunity, shared the same blueprint, the same destiny, but would find a different fate on the other side of the planet. Together they embodied more than exploration. They embodied a philosophy that machines could extend human senses where flesh and bone could not survive. They would become our eyes, our ears, our hands on a world that had called to us for centuries, yet remained out of reach. The turn of the century carried a rare optimism. Humanity was stepping into an era of space exploration no longer bound by Cold War competition, but by the shared pursuit of knowledge. The twin rovers became symbols of this shift. Their launch in 2003 was not a race against rivals, but a race against mystery itself. Could they confirm what orbiters had only hinted? That Mars once carried water, the solvent of life, the cradle of possibility? Mars was chosen not by chance. By then, decades of telescopes and orbiting probes had painted a portrait of a world that once knew rivers, lakes, perhaps even seas. Vast canyons scarred the planet, outflow channels etched into its face as if carved by a flood. Minerals seen from orbit hinted at wet chemistry long ago. If Earth was life's sanctuary, Mars was its mirror, a twin world that had diverged into desolation. The question was not whether water had existed, but how long it endured, and whether it ever sheltered something alive. Spirit carried with it the weight of this question. Every instrument was a shard of human curiosity forged into metal. Every command sent from Earth was a whisper of intention across 225 million kilometers of space. In this way, Spirit was more than a machine. It was an extension of ambition, of yearning, of the human desire to reach out and touch the unknown. Philosophers once imagined Mars as the home of canals and civilizations. Scientists now sought evidence not of cities, but of chemistry, geology, the silent traces that life may have left in stone. Spirit's task was not to listen for voices, but to read the whispers etched in mineral grains, to peel back the layers of a world's deep past. The rover's design reflected this patience. It moved slowly, no faster than a crawling insect, because on Mars, haste is dangerous. Each wheel pressed into fine dust that could trap it forever. Each turn of its mast, each image taken was deliberate. Spirit's very existence was a lesson in endurance, built not to conquer, but to persist. At the heart of its mission was the search for water's history. On Earth, water is life's sculptor. On Mars, it had become life's ghost. Spirit was tasked with chasing that ghost into the rocks, into the soil, into the layers buried just beneath the red crust. The PanCom scanned distant hills. The mini-TESS traced heat signatures invisible to human eyes. The rock abrasion tool carved into boulders, exposing fresh surfaces that had not seen sunlight for billions of years. Each act was both scientific and symbolic. Humanity was reaching into the bones of another planet, asking it to reveal its story. In this, Spirit was more than steel and silicon. It was a bridge, a conduit between human intention and Martian reality. When its cameras opened, humanity's vision extended. When its arm moved, humanity's hand touched another world. It was not alive, yet it carried life's essence, curiosity. That trait, older than civilization, older than history, had found new form in a rover etched with the dust of Mars. The world into which Spirit landed was unforgiving. Yet in those first months, optimism reigned. Engineers on Earth spoke of 90 days, a mission brief and humble. 90 days of science, 90 days of hope, 90 days to answer a question asked for centuries. Few believed it could endure longer, and yet hope often grows stronger when tempered by doubt. The year was 2004. Spirit touched down in Gusev Crater, a basin thought to have once been a lake. Its mission began in silence, broken only by the hum of instruments awakening beneath a pale Martian dawn. From that moment, the rover was no longer a concept on a blueprint. It was an explorer, a witness, and a participant in humanity's greatest experiment, to see if life, or the potential for it, had ever existed beyond Earth. Spirit's journey was more than science. It was the embodiment of an idea, that humanity's reach is longer than its lifespan, that even fragile machines can carry ambition across the void. In the dust of Mars, Spirit was born of ambition, an ambition that was not just about discovery, but about belonging. For when humanity sends machines to other worlds, it does not simply ask questions of geology or chemistry. It asks questions of itself. Why are we here? What is the boundary between life and machine, between mortality and endurance? In Spirit's beginning, these questions were not yet answered, but they were already alive, carried in every signal that crossed the space between Earth and Mars. In January 2004, a small machine descended toward a world that had lived for centuries in the borderlands of myth and science. Spirit, the rover born of human ambition, pierced the thin Martian atmosphere, its fragile heat shield glowing as the planet's breath pressed against it. A parachute blossomed in the high, frigid sky, and airbags inflated in a desperate attempt to soften the fall. Spirit tumbled, bounced, and rolled across the surface of Gusev Crater until finally it came to rest. A hush followed, a silence stretching across 225 million kilometers. Then a signal. a spark of confirmation that the machine had survived. When its eyes opened for the first time, Mars stared back. The horizon stretched in tones of red and gold. Rocks scattered across a plain that seemed endless. The sky, tinted in pale salmon hues, carried the faint weight of a sun more distant than the one remembered on Earth. Dust settled around the rover's still body like a baptism. Spirit had arrived. Humanity had arrived, if only through extension. Gusev Crater had been chosen for a reason. From orbit, it appeared to be the ghost of a lake bed, a basin where water might once have pooled in ancient epochs. Scientists hoped that Spirit's wheels would trace across sediments that remembered rivers, shores, perhaps even deltas. Instead, the rover awakened in a field of volcanic rubble. Dark rocks, angular and weathered, stretched out as if the planet itself had resisted revelation. The questions were waiting, but the answers lay hidden. The terrain was cruel. Dunes of fine dust threatened to swallow the rover's wheels. Jagged stones rose like teeth from the Martian plain. Each movement was calculated, each rotation of the wheels a gamble. The engineers on Earth, separated by the abyss of space, guided Spirit with patience measured in hours and days. Every command was a question, every movement a prayer that the rover would not stumble into a trap. Mars was not welcoming. It was indifferent. And in that indifference lay the beauty of exploration. Yet despite these challenges, Spirit began to speak. Its cameras captured the alien landscape in crystalline detail. PanCam's stereo vision revealed panoramas that no human eye had ever seen directly. The images were more than pictures. They were sacred texts, written in light and dust, carried back across space for humanity to interpret. Each photograph was a fragment of scripture, a passage from the book of another world.
Scientists gathered like readers of an ancient manuscript, parsing the meaning of every rock, every layer, every shadow cast by the Martian sun. At first, Spirit found only volcanic rocks.
Basalt forged in fire, cooled and solidified into hardened forms. The evidence suggested that Gusev Crater had been shaped not by tranquil waters, but by eruptions, by flows of molten stone. For some, this was a disappointment. For others, it was a reminder that Mars, like Earth, had once been a world of fire. The red planet was not simply a desert. It was a planet that had once lived in its own violent way. But Spirit's patience and humanity's persistence revealed more. In 2007, while dragging a partially disabled wheel, the rover uncovered something extraordinary: silica. Nearly pure silica-rich soil gleamed white against the rust-colored ground. On Earth, such deposits often form in the presence of water. Hot springs, fumaroles, hydrothermal systems. The discovery was not just chemical. It was symbolic. Mars, once believed to be dry and barren since its birth, had known interaction between rock, heat, and liquid water. It had known the chemistry that on Earth becomes the cradle of life. Each discovery deepened the mystery. Spirit was not a geologist in the human sense, but its instruments carved open the Martian story with meticulous precision. Microscopic imagers revealed textures in rock that hinted at past water alteration. The mini-TES identified minerals consistent with aqueous processes. The rover's own wheel, in its struggle, became a tool of revelation, scratching beneath the surface and exposing secrets hidden for billions of years. It was as if the planet itself required perseverance, as if its truths could only be found through endurance and accident combined. Spirit's photographs did more than fuel scientific papers. They reshaped imagination. To the public, each image was a window into a world once confined to speculation. Children stared at the panoramic mosaics and saw a horizon where their own footsteps might someday fall. Artists painted from the rover's perspective. Writers borrowed its vision as metaphor. Spirit was not merely a machine gathering data. It was a pilgrim, and its pilgrimage was recorded in images that became scripture for an age of exploration. The metaphor is not empty. A pilgrim moves with faith into the unknown, guided not by certainty but by longing. Spirit moved with the same intent. Each sunrise it witnessed, each dust devil swirling across its field of view, became part of a story that belonged to all humanity. The rover's journey was slow, yet every centimeter was sacred ground. In its still frames, Spirit captured Mars not as an abstract world, but as a real place, a place of rocks and skies and silence, as tangible as any desert on Earth. The discoveries gathered weight. Silica-rich deposits meant water had once existed, but in what form? Hydrothermal systems implied warmth, energy, chemistry, the very ingredients that life demands. To scientists, this raised profound possibilities. If Mars had known such conditions, even fleetingly, then life could have emerged. If not life itself, then at least the conditions that make life plausible. Spirit's images, paired with its data, became evidence not just of geology but of possibility. Yet there was more than science in those transmissions. There was philosophy. Each photograph was also a mirror. They revealed a landscape untouched, ancient, unmoved by time, in the way Earth is reshaped by water and vegetation. Mars stood as a monument to deep time. To look at Spirit's panoramas was to see billions of years laid bare, unsoftened by forests or rivers. It was a confrontation with the scale of planetary history, a reminder of Earth's fragility, and of how easily worlds can turn from life to silence. As Spirit pressed on, storms darkened the skies. Dust gathered on its solar panels, threatening its fragile lifeline of power. Yet the rover persisted. It sent back images of Martian sunsets, the sun appearing smaller than on Earth, sinking into an atmosphere that scattered light in pale, ghostly shades of blue near the horizon. These were not just scientific observations. They were moments of poetry, captured by a machine but felt by human hearts. The images did not merely document Mars. They changed the way humanity thought about it. Mars was no longer just the red star in the sky. Through Spirit's eyes, it became a place with sunsets and storms, with valleys and ridges, with textures that echoed Earth's but spoke with an alien voice. It was a reminder that other worlds are not abstractions but destinations, real places waiting. The significance of Spirit's work cannot be measured solely in data points or minerals identified. Its greatest legacy was in the fusion of science and imagination. The rover proved that Mars had once been shaped by water, that it had known conditions that could have been friendly to life. But it also gave humanity something less tangible, and perhaps more important: perspective. To see another world in such detail was to recognize our place in a cosmos vast and indifferent, and to realize that our longing for connection stretches beyond Earth itself. Spirit's pilgrimage was not eternal. Its wheels began to falter. Its systems grew weary. Its body sank into sand that would one day hold it captive. But before the silence, before the final transmission, Spirit had already accomplished something profound. It had reshaped the way humanity looked at Mars. Through Spirit's eyes, Mars was revealed as both alien and familiar. A world scarred by time, sculpted by fire and water, waiting for us to listen. Each image was a verse in a long poem of discovery. Each discovery was a reminder that exploration is not only about finding answers. It is about finding ourselves reflected in the vastness of the unknown. In the end, Spirit's greatest contribution may not have been the silica it uncovered, or the volcanic rocks it analyzed, or even the evidence of ancient water it revealed. Its true gift was vision. It gave humanity new eyes with which to see a world once wrapped in mystery. And through those eyes it reminded us of something timeless. That to explore is to dream, and to dream is to belong to the universe itself. Mars is a land without mercy. Its beauty is carved in silence, its horizon stretched beneath skies the color of faded embers. Spirit was never meant to thrive here for long. Engineers had given it 90 days of life, a brief season of exploration. Yet the rover endured far beyond its allotted span. What followed was not just a mission. It was a struggle, a slow battle against a world that does not yield. At first, the challenges were small. Wheels that labored against dunes, solar panels dimmed by layers of dust. But with each Martian season, the tests grew heavier. Spirit's right front wheel seized, grinding to a halt after years of motion. The rover could no longer roll as designed. Instead, it dragged the dead wheel like a wounded limb, leaving a trench behind it. A weakness transformed into revelation, for the scar it carved exposed hidden layers of silica-rich soil, a clue to Mars's watery past. Yet the injury remained. From then on, every movement was burdened by struggle. Dust storms gathered on the horizon. On Mars, these storms are not brief tempests, but veils that can cover the entire planet. For weeks, sunlight waned as fine particles clung to Spirit's panels, choking its fragile lifeline of power. The rover, dependent on the faint trickle of energy from a distant sun, grew weaker. Its voice dimmed. Each signal it sent across space became a whisper. Engineers on Earth listened with quiet dread, waiting for silence that might never break. In those moments, Spirit became more than a machine. It became a mirror. The struggle of a rover on a hostile world began to feel like the struggle of humanity itself. Fragile bodies bound to a fragile planet, enduring against the indifference of the cosmos. The rover's stumbles were felt as human stumbles. Its endurance became a testament to the endurance humanity longed to see within itself. Every signal Spirit sent home carried a delay of up to 20 minutes. A consequence of the gulf between two worlds, but those minutes grew symbolic. Each transmission was like a heartbeat stretched across space-time, each pause an echo of Einstein's relativity. Spirit lived in a rhythm no human could feel, its time stretched and elongated by the distance of millions of kilometers. Its every cry for power, every confirmation of life was received late, as though time itself was conspiring to remind us of fragility. The engineers on Earth became more than caretakers. They became lifelines. In laboratories and control rooms, they whispered instructions, coaxed the rover through storms and winters, adjusted its panels toward faint light. Across the void, Spirit obeyed, patient and faithful, even as its body weakened. The connection between machine and human became a bond, fragile but profound. Spirit's survival was no longer only a matter of science. It had become personal. Mars pressed harder. Winters arrived with killing cold, temperatures plunging below -100 degrees Celsius. Spirit's heaters drained precious power, leaving less for science, less for movement, less for breath. The rover huddled in silence, conserving energy, waiting for the sun to return. Each dawn was a question: would it rise again? Each dusk a reminder of mortality. To imagine a machine as mortal may seem a contradiction, yet Spirit revealed otherwise. Mortality is not only the end of biological life. It is the slow yielding to inevitability, the gradual fading of function, the surrender to forces beyond control. Spirit carried that truth across Mars, not in words, but in silence. Its body stiffened with age, its movements faltered, its voice grew thin. It lived not forever, but long enough to remind us that even machines can embody the fragility of existence. Still, Spirit persisted. Against storms, against failing wheels, against winters that bit into its frame, the rover continued to send back visions of Mars. Each panorama was not only science, it was survival. Every pixel carried weight, proof that the machine endured another day, another hour, another moment. Each photograph was both data and heartbeat. To see the Martian horizon through Spirit's eyes was to witness persistence, the refusal to vanish without leaving a record. The philosophy of persistence is woven into exploration itself. Humanity's reach has always exceeded its grasp, and yet it continues to stretch. Spirit became an emblem of this philosophy. It did not conquer Mars, but it endured upon it. It did not solve every mystery, but it asked questions with every trench carved, every stone examined, every silence survived. Its struggle was not wasted. It was sacred. The image of Spirit dragging its broken wheel across the dust became more than engineering. It became metaphor. The wounded pilgrim crawling onward, leaving scars across an alien plane, searching still. In that image, humanity recognized itself, imperfect, damaged, yet moving forward, because to stop is to surrender. Spirit was not flawless. It was mortal, and in its mortality, it became beautiful. The storms returned. Waves of dust dimmed the skies again, cloaking the sun in veils of shadow. Engineers fought to keep Spirit alive, commanding it to tilt its panels to stretch for light. Sometimes the wind blessed the rover, sweeping dust away in sudden gusts known as cleaning events. Other times the storm suffocated it further. The rover teetered between existence and silence, balanced on the knife edge of survival. Spirit's slow struggle became a meditation on time. Einstein once wrote that time is relative, that its flow depends on the observer. For Spirit, time was measured not in seconds or days, but in transmissions. Each packet of data a delayed heartbeat crossing the void. Each command from Earth a prayer arriving late. Time stretched thin between two planets, binding them together in a fragile rhythm. Spirit lived within that rhythm until silence finally claimed it. But silence was not defeat. It was inevitability. Mars is a world of endings. It remembers its rivers only in scars, its lakes only in mineral ghosts. Its air is a remnant, its seas gone, its warmth faded. Spirit joined that chorus of endings, becoming part of the planet it sought to reveal. In its silence, it taught us that persistence is not measured by eternal survival, but by how long one endures against certainty. The slow struggle of Spirit is written into the history of exploration. It is the story of a machine that became a pilgrim, a witness, a mortal. It is the story of engineers who became guardians, keeping a fragile spark alive across a gulf of emptiness. It is the story of persistence against inevitability, of endurance in the face of silence. In the end, Spirit's journey was not simply about discovery. It was about survival. It was about the recognition that fragility does not diminish meaning. It amplifies it. Just as humans measure their own lives by the briefness of time, so too did Spirit's mission gain weight because it was finite. Each signal, each image, each trench carved into Martian dust was precious because it would not last forever. The rover's struggle lingers as philosophy, that even in a universe governed by inevitability, persistence matters. That even machines can mirror the human condition, fragile, temporary, yet determined to leave something behind. Spirit's silence was not the end of a machine. It was the continuation of a lesson, that to endure against impossible odds even for a while is a triumph, that to struggle is not failure but meaning, and that sometimes the most profound discoveries are not only of water or rock or dust, but of ourselves reflected in the perseverance of a lonely traveler on a distant world. The silence of a machine does not begin with darkness. It begins with a final vision. Spirit, the rover that once wandered across Gusev Crater with quiet determination, did not vanish in an instant. Before its voice faded forever, it opened its eyes one last time and offered a gift across the abyss. A panorama, a sweeping gaze across the Martian plain, a horizon that would outlive its own heartbeat. The images Spirit sent in those final days were both scientific records and elegies. They revealed a landscape shaped by ages beyond comprehension, ridges of volcanic stone, plains covered in rust-red dust, patches of disturbed soil where the rover's crippled wheel had scarred the surface. The photograph was not just a picture. It was a narrative. Each pixel contained the layered memory of a planet. To geologists, the panorama spoke of basalt flows, aeolian dunes, and the scars of ancient forces. To the human eye, it was something more. It was a farewell. Spirit had spent over 6 years moving across Mars, far beyond its original 90-day mission. Each season it survived was improbable. Each year it lived was a triumph. And in that time it learned the language of the planet. The volcanic rocks it examined told of fire that once reshaped the basin of Gusev. The silica-rich soils it uncovered whispered of hydrothermal systems, of water that once bubbled and boiled, leaving traces of chemistry that on Earth might sustain life. By the end, Spirit had become fluent in Mars's silence. Its last panorama was not simply a view. It was a summation, a closing chapter written in light. The scientific value of those images was immense. They allowed researchers to piece together the geology of Spirit's final resting place. Patterns in the rocks suggested volcanic activity had once dominated the crater floor. The soil revealed clues of past interaction with water, perhaps acidic, perhaps transient, but present enough to alter the chemistry of stone. Dust patterns hinted at the workings of Martian winds, subtle forces that slowly shaped the landscape. Even in its final days, Spirit was teaching. Its silence had not yet fallen, and its eyes remained open to the mysteries of another world. But the poignancy of those last images transcended geology. Spirit's gaze felt almost deliberate, as if the machine had chosen its final act. Its cameras swept the horizon, not in fragments but in fullness, stitching together a view that carried weight beyond science. It was as though the rover knew it would not rise again, and so it offered humanity the chance to see Mars one last time through its eyes. The panorama became more than data. It became legacy. In the images, the Martian horizon stretched into a distance of emptiness, a silence embodied in stone. No rivers flowed there, no voices echoed, no life stirred. Yet the panorama resonated because of what it implied. A machine built by human hands had carried our gaze into that emptiness. A mortal construct had offered us a vision that outlived its own strength. Spirit's final horizon became humanity's horizon. At the same time, another rover still lived. Opportunity, Spirit's twin, continued to traverse the plains of Meridiani, sending back its own visions, its own discoveries. But the silence of Spirit cast a shadow across that survival. For while opportunity persisted, Spirit's end reminded us that endurance is never infinite. Machines, like humans, carry mortality within their design. Spirit's death was not failure, but inevitability. And in that inevitability lay symbolism. The final panorama became a mirror for the human condition. It showed a horizon that could be both beginning and ending. To scientists, it was a record of terrain. To poets, it was a farewell glance. To philosophers, it was a reminder that all journeys end not in answers, but in silence. The machine had carried our ambition farther than expected, and in return, it gave us a last horizon to contemplate. When the images reached Earth, they were studied with precision. Geologists mapped the outcrops and measured the albedo of dust. Climatologists noted the patterns of wind erosion, comparing them with the global storms recorded from orbit. Each pixel became a data point, another piece of the puzzle. Yet no analysis could erase the emotional resonance. Engineers who had commanded the rover for years looked at the panorama and felt the weight of farewell. Spirit was no longer only an instrument. It had become a companion, and its last gaze felt personal. There is a philosophy in the way machines die, a kind of machine mortality that echoes human mortality. Spirit's body had not failed all at once. Its wheels had weakened, its panels grown dim, its systems strained against cold and dust. Each failure was a reminder of fragility. And yet, even in decline, the rover persisted in vision. The last images were proof that even in the face of silence, persistence has meaning. The act of seeing became Spirit's final defiance. The panorama remains archived in digital vaults, studied and admired, its pixels unchanging, while the Martian winds continue to shape the landscape unseen. It is a frozen moment, a still heartbeat preserved in light, and that is its greatest gift. Spirit's final images did not fade with its silence. They endure. They are the memory of a machine that once walked across another world, carrying human ambition with it. In those frames, one sees not only Mars, but humanity reflected. The struggle to endure, the desire to leave behind something that outlives the self, the hope that vision can persist even when voices fall silent. Spirit's final panorama is not just an image of geology. It is a legacy etched into light. The rover's silence that followed was profound. Commands were sent, signals called out across space, but no answer returned. The engineers continued to listen, to hope, to wait. For months they reached into the void, unwilling to accept the end. But Mars remained quiet. The dust had won, the cold had claimed, and Spirit had joined the long silence of a planet that holds its secrets close. Yet Spirit's silence is not an absence. It is a presence. It lingers in every image it left behind, in every discovery drawn from its instruments, in every panorama still studied by those who seek to understand Mars. The last horizon it offered remains not as an ending, but as a reminder that even fragile machines can create legacies, that even silence can speak. Mars is a graveyard of dreams, yet it is also a stage of meaning. Spirit's final images stand as both epitaph and testament. Epitaph because they mark the end of a machine's journey. Testament because they affirm the endurance of vision. In the face of inevitability, Spirit chose to see. And in that act of vision, it gave humanity a horizon that stretches not only across Mars, but across imagination itself. The rover's last gaze carries a truth that resonates beyond science. That to see is to exist. That to record is to resist erasure. That even the smallest construct, even a machine built for 90 days can leave behind something eternal. Spirit's final images remind us that legacy is not measured in duration, but in what is left behind when silence falls. So the panorama stands. A final horizon, framed not by human eyes but by a machine that became an extension of human longing. A horizon that is both farewell and invitation. Farewell to Spirit, whose voice has gone quiet. Invitation to humanity, whose journey into the cosmos has only begun. For in those last images lies more than Mars. They hold the essence of exploration itself. The refusal to look away, even in the face of ending. The insistence that vision must persist, that light must be captured, that horizons must be shared. Spirit's silence was inevitable, but its last horizon remains. And in that horizon, humanity finds itself reflected. Fragile, mortal, yet determined to leave behind a legacy etched into light. Silence has a weight. It is not empty but full. It carries the finality of endings and the vastness of unanswered questions. In March of 2010, the silence of Mars grew heavier. Spirit, the rover that had endured years beyond expectation, ceased to answer. Its last signal, faint but faithful, was received as the Martian winter deepened. After that, nothing. A machine that had once spoken with the clarity of images and data now offered only absence. The timeline of its final days is stark. On March 22nd, Spirit transmitted what would become its last whisper across interplanetary space. Then came the long wait. Engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory continued to call out across the void, sending signals through the deep space network, listening for even the faintest reply. Hours stretched into days, days into months.
Each session of listening carried hope, and each session ended with silence. Mars had always been a distant frontier, but in Spirit's silence, the distance became profound.
20 minutes separated each call and each potential reply, but no reply came. The delay was no longer a measure of distance. It became a measure of absence, a reminder that communication across space is not guaranteed, that voices can vanish without farewell. For over a year, the attempts continued. Commands were sent in every possible mode, uplinks designed to rouse the rover, to trigger systems, to coax life from circuits perhaps only sleeping. Engineers adjusted their strategies as seasons shifted, hoping that with spring sunlight, Spirit's panels might awaken again. They imagined gusts of Martian wind clearing dust from its lifeless wings, granting it just enough energy to respond. But the winds were quiet, or the silence deeper than dust could explain. On May 25, 2011, NASA made the announcement that many had already feared but few were ready to accept. Spirit was gone. The silence had become permanent. The rover that had lived 20 times its expected life, that had crossed dunes and examined stones and uncovered secrets of Mars's watery past, had fallen still. The loss was not merely technical. It was emotional. For those who had guided it, Spirit had become a companion. To lose it was to lose a voice that had spoken from another world. The silence that followed became symbolic. It was not simply the silence of a machine. It was a reflection of the silence of the cosmos itself. Stephen Hawking once spoke of the great quiet that pervades the universe. A paradox where billions of stars burn, yet so few voices are heard. The cosmic silence, as he called it, is a reminder that existence does not guarantee communication. Spirit's silence echoed this truth on a smaller scale. A voice had been heard for years across millions of kilometers. Then it was gone, leaving only the stillness of distance. There is something existential in the end of a machine. Spirit's death became a mirror in which humanity saw its own fragility. The rover's finite nature reminded us that all endeavors, no matter how ambitious, are bound by limits. Just as a human life is measured in years, so too was Spirit's mission measured in transmissions. Its silence was a reminder that exploration is not infinite. It is always bounded by mortality, whether of humans or of the machines they create. Mars itself seemed complicit in this silence. The planet had never been welcoming. Its storms had darkened the skies, its dust had drained Spirit's power, its winters had pressed with lethal cold. Now, the silence of the rover became part of the Martian landscape itself. Somewhere in Gusev crater, beneath a thin, pale sky, Spirit rests, its panels covered in dust, its cameras forever blind. The silence surrounding it is not an absence.
It is the sound of Mars itself.
A world that does not speak but endures. To scientists, Spirit's end was expected. No machine can last forever against such conditions. Yet the symbolism was unavoidable. A voice from another world had ceased, and with it came reflection. What does it mean to explore if exploration must end? What does it mean to reach across distance only to be reminded that distance is infinite? Spirit's silence was not only about a rover. It was about humanity's own confrontation with mortality and meaning. Philosophers have long considered silence as a mirror of existence. In silence, one confronts questions that words cannot answer. Spirit's silence confronted humanity with its own limits. We can send machines to other worlds. We can listen for their voices. But we cannot escape the truth that every endeavor, however profound, will one day end in quiet. The rover's silence was not a failure. It was a reflection of the finite nature of all journeys, yet within that silence lies persistence. Spirit's discoveries endure. Its images remain, its data archived, its legacy woven into the fabric of planetary science. The rover itself may never speak again, but what it revealed continues to speak for it. Evidence of hydrothermal activity, silica deposits that suggest water once flowed, images of sunsets and dust devils, panoramas of Martian ridges and plains. Spirit is silent, but its voice lingers in what it has left behind. Perhaps this is the deepest meaning of its silence. Mortality does not erase legacy. Silence does not erase vision. Spirit reminds us that even finite lives, whether of machines or humans, can create echoes that persist beyond their ending. Its silence is heavy, but within that weight lies memory. In the vast cosmos, silence is more common than sound. Planets turn without voices. Stars burn without words. The great majority of the universe is mute. Spirit's end aligned it with that reality. It joined the cosmic silence, becoming part of the greater stillness that surrounds Earth. And yet, by joining it, Spirit also gave it meaning. For now, when we think of cosmic silence, we think not only of galaxies that do not answer, but of a small machine that once did. until it could no longer. The silence of Spirit is a reminder that exploration is not measured only in discovery. It is measured in endurance, in the willingness to reach into the void even knowing that the void may not reply. It is measured in the courage to send fragile machines into hostile worlds, to accept their mortality, and to celebrate their vision while it lasts. Spirit's silence belongs to Mars now. It lingers in Gusev Crater, in the shadows of ancient volcanic stones, in the dust that once carried whispers of water. It belongs to the winds that sweep across the crater floor, indifferent yet eternal. It belongs to the sky that glows in pale light, beneath which the rover lies still. Spirit has become part of the landscape, its silence woven into the rhythm of the planet itself. In the end, the silence after the signal is not emptiness. It is a presence that endures. It is the echo of a journey completed, a mission fulfilled, a legacy secured. Spirit may no longer speak, but its silence tells a story. A story of ambition, of endurance, of mortality, and of meaning. Mars is quiet again. But in that quiet lives the memory of a rover that once gave it voice. When a voice falls silent, what remains is the echo. Spirit's silence in 2010 was not an erasure, but an echo that continues to ripple outward. Across science, across imagination, across history itself. What the rover left behind is not measured only in rock samples and images, but in legacy. A legacy that binds the machine to the long chain of explorers who came before it, and to the ones who will follow. Spirit's greatest scientific gift was proof that Mars was not always as it appears today. Beneath the red dust and the desolation lay evidence of ancient water, carved into the chemistry of stone. When its crippled wheel dragged across the soil and exposed veins of nearly pure silica, it offered one of the clearest signs yet that hydrothermal activity had once shaped this world. On Earth, such deposits form in hot springs and fumaroles, places rich with energy, warmth, and chemistry, places where microbes thrive. Spirit revealed that Mars had known such conditions. Perhaps fleeting, perhaps billions of years past, but real. It also found volcanic rocks scattered across Gusev Crater, reminders that Mars was once a planet of fire as well as water. Spirit became a geologist in exile, reading the layers of basalt, the scars of ancient eruptions, the alteration of minerals by acidic waters long gone. Its instruments traced the whispers of past habitability, mapping the chemistry of a planet that had once held the potential for life. For planetary science, these discoveries were profound. Mars was no longer just a frozen desert. It was a world with a history, with chapters written in water and fire, with conditions that on Earth would have been enough to cradle living things. Spirit could not prove life existed there, but it showed that the question was not empty, that the search was not in vain. Its silence left behind evidence that continues to guide science today. But Spirit's legacy is not only scientific, it is emotional. The rover became a symbol of endurance, a reminder that fragile constructs can survive far longer than expected, and in doing so, inspire. Spirit's mission laid the groundwork for those that came after. Curiosity, perseverance, even the tiny helicopter ingenuity. Each carries within it the lessons learned from Spirit's struggles and triumphs. Its broken wheel revealed the hidden silica. Its dust-choked panels taught engineers how storms can threaten survival. Its discoveries shaped the design of every rover that followed. Curiosity now roams Gale Crater, carrying instruments that can drill, analyze, and detect organic molecules, pushing deeper into the question Spirit first opened. Perseverance explores Jezero Crater, seeking signs of ancient life in sediments of an ancient river delta, carrying ingenuity as a scout. Their lineage is clear. Without Spirit and opportunity, without their endurance and their silence, these new explorers would not exist. Spirit's death became a foundation, not an end. In this, the rover's story mirrors human history. Ancient explorers once left behind maps, fragments, and myths. They crossed seas with fragile vessels, often never returning, but their journeys lit the way for those who followed. Spirit is part of that same tradition. It left behind panoramas instead of parchment, silica instead of stories, but the principle is the same. It charted a place no human has yet walked, and left behind the evidence of where to go next. Spirit is both tombstone and beacon. Tombstone, because its body lies silent in Gusev Crater, a marker of the end of one mission. Beacon, because its discoveries shine forward, guiding new missions toward deeper questions. Tombstone, because its silence reminds us of mortality. Beacon, because its images remind us of possibility. Its legacy extends beyond science and engineering. Spirit's story touched imagination. School children saw its images and dreamed of becoming explorers. Writers and artists borrowed its endurance as metaphor. Philosophers drew parallels between a machine's silence and the human condition. Spirit became more than hardware on another world. It became myth, part of humanity's collective story of exploration. There is power in such myths. Ancient civilizations told stories of voyagers who crossed oceans to find unknown lands. Spirit belongs to the same lineage, except its ocean was the void between planets, and its ship was a rover no larger than a golf cart. Like those ancient explorers, it did not return. It remained where it landed, becoming part of the landscape it sought to reveal. But its story returned home, carried in signals, in images, in data that outlived its own voice. What the rover left behind is a reminder that progress is built upon endings. Every mission that fails, every probe that goes silent, becomes the foundation of the next. Spirit taught engineers how to endure storms, how to build instruments that last, how to prepare for failure and turn it into discovery. Without Spirit's broken wheel, we might never have found silica. Without its struggles, perseverance and curiosity might not have been ready for their own. Progress is not smooth. It is built on fragments, on lessons carried forward, on legacies that grow from silence. Spirit also left behind a philosophy. The idea that persistence itself is meaningful. That exploration is not only about reaching answers, but about enduring long enough to ask better questions. Spirit's silence does not diminish its value. It amplifies it, because it reminds us that every mission, every human endeavor is finite, and that meaning lies not in eternity, but in what is left behind when silence comes. In the halls of NASA, Spirit's mission is remembered not only in data, but in feeling. Engineers speak of it as though it were alive because in some way it was. It carried not its own ambition, but ours. It became the vessel of our longing to know if we are alone. Its silence was felt as loss because it was never just a machine. It was a companion in humanity's search for belonging in the cosmos. Even now, the rover rests in Gusev Crater, its panels buried in dust, its body unmoving. Yet it has not vanished. Spirit remains part of the Martian landscape, part of its history, part of its myth. Like the ruins of ancient temples or the shipwrecks of long-forgotten voyages, it stands as a marker, a tombstone of one journey and a beacon for the next. What Spirit left behind is not only for scientists or engineers. It is for all of humanity. It left behind a reminder that fragile things can endure, that silence can carry meaning, that even machines can leave legacies. Its discoveries continue to shape planetary science. Its story continues to shape imagination. Its silence continues to shape philosophy. The rover did not answer the ultimate question, whether life ever arose on Mars, but it left behind the context in which that question now burns brighter. It showed that Mars was once a world of warmth and chemistry, that it held the conditions for possibility. Spirit did not find life, but it showed us where to look. That is its greatest legacy. In this way, Spirit's story is eternal, even if its voice is not. Because what it left behind is not silence. It is resonance. A resonance that echoes in curiosity's drills, in perseverance's samples, in ingenuity's flights, a resonance that echoes in the dreams of those who look up at Mars and see not a distant star, but a place that once welcomed a fragile machine. Spirit is gone, but what it left behind endures. A tombstone, a beacon, a story written in dust and stone, carried in light, remembered in silence. There is a silence that is not empty, but eternal. Spirit's journey ended not in words, but in vision. A final panorama stretched across the Martian plain, a horizon framed by a machine that had endured far longer than its makers imagined. That last image became more than data. It became philosophy. The testament of a dreamer who could not speak, yet left behind a gaze that will never fade. Spirit was built to last 90 days. It endured for more than 6 years. In that span, it transformed from instrument to dreamer, from experiment to symbol. Its wheels wore down, its panels grew dim, its body faltered, yet it continued to see. Even at the end, when silence pressed close, Spirit's eyes remained open. Its final vision is not only a record of terrain, it is a reflection of what it means to exist, to endure, to leave behind something greater than oneself. What does it mean that humanity's first lasting footprints on Mars are not human at all? The surface of Gusev crater bears no mark of a boot, no echo of a heartbeat, no human breath carried into the thin Martian air. Instead, it bears the scars of wheels, tracks carved into dust by a machine born of Earth. Spirit became humanity's first pilgrim upon another planet, and in its endurance, it became more than steel and silicon. It became a witness, carrying the longing of an entire species. The rover's last image is not only of Mars, it is of humanity reflected in another world. It is a bridge of memory between planets. On one side, a machine gazing outward. On the other side, billions of human eyes gazing inward, searching for meaning in the silence. That bridge is fragile, yet it endures. It is light carried across distance, vision preserved in data, memory that will last far longer than the rover's body beneath the dust. Images are memory. They hold what words cannot. They preserve what time erodes. Spirit's final panorama has become such a memory. For science, it records geology, climate, the chemistry of another world. For humanity, it records something deeper. A moment in which a fragile construct became immortal through vision. A moment in which exploration was no longer about conquest or possession, but about remembrance. The question arises, does this redefine what it means to be alive? Spirit lived in its own way. It struggled against storms, endured through winters, stumbled across dunes, persisted despite broken wheels. It carried purpose, it responded to care, it left behind legacy. These are qualities humanity recognizes in itself. Spirit did not breathe, but it endured. It did not think, but it explored. It did not dream, yet its vision became dreamlike. Perhaps life is not only measured by biology. Perhaps life is also the act of persisting against silence, of leaving behind something that memory can hold. In this way, Spirit was both mortal and eternal. Mortal because its circuits failed, its panels darkened, its voice fell silent. Eternal because its last image endures, its discoveries continue to guide, its story continues to inspire. Mortality and eternity entwined, just as they are in humanity. For every human life, too, is finite. Yet every human endeavor leaves echoes. Spirit's silence is our silence, and its vision is our vision, projected into the cosmos. The philosophy of the last image is this, that even in endings there is persistence. Even in silence there is memory. Spirit did not conquer Mars, but it revealed it. It did not solve the mystery of life, but it deepened the question. It did not live forever, but it left behind a vision that might. That is the essence of meaning. Not to last without end, but to leave behind something that endures beyond the self. Humanity itself is like spirit. Fragile, finite, wandering across a universe indifferent to survival. It too leaves behind images, cave paintings, stone ruins, digital archives, telescopic photographs of distant galaxies. Each is a final image in its own way. A memory preserved against silence, a bridge stretched across time and distance. Humanity, like Spirit, sends its fleeting gaze into the cosmos, hoping the universe will remember. The rover's last image reminds us that exploration is not only about discovery. It is about reflection, about seeing not just what is beyond, but what is within. When Spirit looked at Mars one final time, it also looked at us. Its image is a mirror, a reminder that all journeys end, but that the act of seeing, of recording, of remembering, gives meaning to the end. Spirit's silence does not diminish its legacy. It amplifies it. Because silence forces us to listen more carefully, to search for echoes, to find meaning in what remains. The last panorama is not only an image of Mars, it is the philosophy of exploration, that even fragile constructs can leave behind eternal memory, that even silence can carry vision, that even endings can become beginnings. Mars is quiet again. The winds sweep across Gusev crater. The dust settles on Spirit's still frame. The sky glows in pale hues above its resting place. Yet Spirit remains. Not in voice, not in movement, but in memory. Its last image is eternal, preserved in archives, studied by scientists, admired by dreamers. It is a horizon that belongs not only to Mars, but to humanity's imagination. The philosophy of the last image is also the philosophy of existence. That life, whether of machine or human, is finite. But memory is not. Vision is not. Legacy is not. Spirit's story is humanity's story, written in dust and silence, preserved in light. And like Spirit, humanity too will one day leave its last image. Perhaps of Earth seen from afar. Perhaps of a probe sent into interstellar space, carrying whispers of its makers. Perhaps of cities abandoned, or of stars watched from new worlds. The final image will come, but it will not be empty. It will be memory. It will be legacy. So Spirit rests, but its vision does not. It dreamed without knowing it dreamed. It struggled without knowing it struggled. It died without knowing it lived. And yet it has become eternal in the only way that matters. Through memory, through vision, through the philosophy of the last image. In the end, humanity is like Spirit, fragile, finite, yet determined to see. To look outward even in the face of silence. To leave behind echoes even when voices fall quiet. To hope that in the vastness of the cosmos, the final image will endure, and that the universe will remember.